In the last video, we set up the form, just kind of went into the settings and some of the best practices and the themes. This one, we're going to go through each of the different question types. I've already gone through this form and added all of these questions here. So what we're going to do is preview the form so that you'll see what each question type looks like from a user's perspective. Then we'll come back over to this end of the form and mess with it a little bit. So you click this little eyeball, and that previews your form. And so here we go. We're going to use the form. This is exactly what it would look like for um, one of your students. We're requiring that email address collection. We're requiring that they put their name in. This question, you can just put a date in there and ask someone to put a date. Now, I put what is your birthday, but a history teacher might say, what was the date of the signing of blank treaty or something like that. What's nice about it is that you can click and get an actual calendar to mess with. And you can kind of scroll through and pick different years, and you have a lot of options there because I can go all the way back. Woo. And so you can pick random stuff. I'm just going to pick a random date, obviously not my birthday. What time were you born? So yeah, you also can put a question that is just for a specific time. 4 a.m. I don't know what time I was born, but there you go. So if you needed a specific time for anything, what time are you planning to arrive if you're surveying people? Or even if you put a picture in there and you're asking what time is on this clock, this requires that they actually put a specific time. So those are some of those basic ones. Now I've moved on to section 2, where I've got, this is a short answer question where I'm asking them to write a sentence with the word lugubrious. So they would write their sentence here. If I hit enter, nothing's really going to happen. A short answer question can only have one line. Write a paragraph. This is a long answer text. So if I start typing, I can hit enter and it keeps going. So with the long answer, you have a lot more space and the box fills, like opens up as you write more, as opposed to the short answer where it's just that one line and that one line only. That's followed up with multiple choice. Who wrote Fahrenheit 451? Oh, Ray Bradbury did. Now, I inserted pictures for each of these. That's obviously not required, totally optional. But I thought it was kind of cool. You can add a picture of anything. You can add all these pictures in, which is nice. Now, I duplicated the question here just to show the difference between multiple choice. All of the answer choices are up and available. With this one, this is a drop down. So I have the same answer choices, but it takes up a lot less space. That's the main difference. So there's not like, what's the question? With these pictures? Takes up less space. So there's a drop down. Click the drop down, choose your answer. Now this is check boxes. And with check boxes, I have that select all that apply in there because you can pick more than one answer. So who's American here? Ray Bradbury, Langston Hughes, Toni Morrison, etc. Jacqueline Woodson. Why won't Toni Morrison click? Hey, there we go. So you can click multiple answers there. I could also click George Orwell. I'd be incorrect, but there you go. You hit next for our last section here. This is a linear scale question. So how useful was that YouTube video? Not useful at all, or was it very useful, or somewhere in the middle? Linear scale, they can only pick one option along that scale, but very helpful for survey type stuff. This is a multiple choice grid. So I have a list of students on the left for each row, and I'm saying rate your teammates in terms of how much they helped your group succeed. Was student A no help at all, but student B maybe was kind of helpful. Student C was super helpful, and student D did a lot of work, but man, that student A, I wish they weren't in the group at all. You can only pick one answer for each row. So that's how I've used this one in the past. Now, this is a checkbox grid where I've got 4 different categories and I've got 5 different states, and I'm saying pick everything that's true about each of these particular states. So the state capital begins with M. Well, not Topeka, not Augusta. Oh, but Montpelier and Madison. Great. So that's true for them. And Vermont's also in New England. So is Maine. So there can be more than one correct answer within each row based on um, the categories. Obviously, everything here is clickable, so you could still get that wrong. But yeah, you know. Oh, and this I'll show you something later. So those are done. You submit. And then just like we did in that last video, we put the, hey, thanks, Mr. Farley's going to grade this shortly. We can customize that message. And that's what it looks like. On the teacher end, now we have one response because even when you preview it, if you answer everything, that still does go in the responses. You have completed the form. So if you don't want your test answers to kind of mess anything up, you can go in and delete those. But what it looks like on this end is you have a summary. So you'll have a list of all the email addresses that were collected and a list of all the names, a list of all the birthdays, if that's what you were asking, and on down. Multiple choice and drop downs, you get a little pie chart of how many people chose each answer, which is nice. For your checkbox ones, you get a bar graph here of all the different percentages of how many people chose each one. Same goes here. And this was, this was the multiple choice grid. So we have a 5, a 3. So with each student, you're going to get an average of, well, not an average necessarily, but you'll get each color will show up for each student. So if the next person said student A was a 5, then there would be a purple one with student A as well. And if student C was a 3, then there would be an orange as well as this purple. So you get how many times each option was chosen for each student, which I find that interesting. And then here, sort of like how it looks like here, because you could choose more than one for each state. And for these two, I did choose 2 different things. So you get the different colors, like how many times each option was chosen for each one. You can also go question by question. So this is just the name question, and therefore it's just that. Just the names. And if I jump down to write the paragraph, I would see all the paragraphs there. I kind of like that because then I can grade everybody's paragraph at the same time and kind of keep my headspace in what am I looking for in this question, which is nice. And I also don't have their names on it. So I can't be, swayed or biased because oh, well, that kid does X or Y or Z. Or is super nice and maybe I'll be lenient. Nope, you won't have that because you won't see whose it is. And then individual, here's where I can delete my test answers if I so chose. I could also print an individual's answers out if I wanted to. You can scroll through them from 1 to 2 to 3, whatever. There's only one here now. Or you can choose a specific person's by using this drop down, which would have all the email addresses. So that's where your responses end up. As far as what it looks like setting up each of these questions, well, the date is pretty straightforward. You can add a picture to it, like I did with that multiple choice one. Same goes with time. You could add a picture, but it just says pick a time, and you can make it required or not, entirely up to you. Short answer text, straightforward. Long answer text, straightforward. With the multiple choice, I'm going to delete the Bradbury picture for now. Over on the right is where you would add that image. When you are adding an image, I will say, you can upload one that you already have. You can, it says Google image search, but for some reason our web filter tends to block that image search when you're within a form. So I typically just open a new tab. I do the search in Google, go to images, and find the one that I want. And then I usually use the URL option. So if I have my picture, I right click it and I copy the image address. And then where it says by URL is where I paste, Control V, paste that and insert it. And now my picture will come back. There we go. So yeah, you can add one for each of your multiple choice options, which is kind of fun. Here's where I duplicated that question and turned it into a drop down. Can't have pictures with the drop down options. So that's why the pictures disappeared, but there they are. And with each one, you can add more than 4 options. You can add as many as you want. I just happen to stop at 4. Checkboxes, again, you can keep adding more, add more, add more. And you can add other, which is also kind of nice. And if they choose that, they can type in their own answer. So if there's another American author they wanted to add here, then they could do that. But that's what the checkboxes look like. And you can add images to those as well. The more advanced ones, like the linear scale, you can say what 1 and 5 are. Like I typed in, not useful at all and very useful. You could change that to whatever you wanted. You can also change how much the scale is for. You can go all the way up to 10 instead of 5. Totally up to you. Multiple choice grid. Keep in mind that the rows over on the left, think of those kind of as the questions, and then the columns, think about those as like the categories. Columns will be along the top, rows will be along the left there. So you want this to be graded on this scale. I have mixed that up before where I've put like my student names on the top and then it doesn't work very well. So you want the correct things in the rows. Same goes basically for the multiple choice one. Whatever you want your question to be on the left, and your categories would be like your columns on the top. You can also require a response in each row. That means like for each one of these, you have to pick at least one thing. Since it's checkboxes, you can pick multiple, but you'd have to pick at least one for every state. And then the thing I said I'd come back to down here, the one question type I didn't have in there was file upload. This is something I haven't really played with much because there's a built-in Dropbox and on campus, so I haven't really needed kids to upload any files via Google. But you do have that option. It does require them to be signed in, which they should automatically be on their school computer. And then that file will go into your Google Drive, so you'll have a copy of it. So yeah, I haven't played with that much. I haven't really needed it, but that's where that goes. That's where you have that option. So those are all the question types and kind of what they look like on both ends, both from a user perspective and from a creator perspective. And in the next couple of videos, we're going to do 2 things. One is play with response validation and play with quizzes, because those are kind of next level things. So yeah.